I will call to order the Village of Westmont Planning and Zoning Commission for September 8th, 2010. May we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Anton?
Here.
Commissioner Pill?
Here.
Commissioner Fleet?
Here.
Commissioner Van Buren is here. Commissioner Fidesco?
Here.
Commissioner Thomas?
Here.
And Chairman Richard?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, if you would please all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
While I have you standing, anybody that's going to give any testimony this evening, either for or against anything on the agenda, you have to be sworn in. So, if you'll please raise your hands. I swear that any testimony I give this evening shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. Two gentlemen in the front did not. All right. No problem. I would ask that you please silence or turn off all electronic devices, if you would. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of our August 11 meeting.
Motion to accept. Second.
Motion by Commissioner Pill, seconded by Commissioner Anton. Question on the motion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Pill?
Yes.
Commissioner Fleet?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes. Commissioner Fidesco?
Abstain.
Commissioner Thomas?
Present.
Commissioner Anton?
Yes.
And Chairman Richard?
Yes. Okay, the minutes as printed are hereby adopted. Next item is old business. Planning and zoning meeting, item 10-019, Amgad Hana of Alpha Motors and Rebecca Michaels with Prima Vista LLC regarding the property located at 301 to 311 East Ogden for the following: revised site plan approval.
Chairman Richard, I did communicate with the petitioner this week. However, they don't appear to be in the audience as of yet, so maybe we could hold this to the end and see if they've arrived.
All right. And I did forget to ask anybody that gives testimony this evening, if you would please sign in for us at the podium. Okay, so, John, do we need a motion to move that to the back of the agenda?
Nope, it's okay.
Okay.
Let's proceed.
Next item, new business. Planning and zoning item 10-025. Michael Lacey of Lacey and Associates LLC and Gus Perez of Van Buren Enterprises regarding the property located at 2 West Ogden for the following: A, special use permit request to allow an automobile repair shop in the B2 General Business District. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, gentlemen and ladies. I'm here to ask for special use. Good evening again, and I'm here to represent Mr. Perez regarding the special use request for the operation to be conducted at 2 West Ogden Avenue. The facility in question has been a service station, gas station, since approximately 1944. It continued to be operated in that manner until June of this year, when Shell Oil, the last operator as a gasoline retailer, pulled their underground storage tanks. The use of the repair bay prior to that has been deemed a ancillary use to the use as a gasoline retailer, and consequently we are required at this point in time to apply for a special use permit solely for the purpose of conducting automobile repairs. Now, by automobile repairs, I'm not talking a body shop. We're talking about mechanical repairs, engine, transmission, maybe change some tires. The use is consistent with the other uses in the area. There's a Just Tires next door, and along the Ogden Avenue corridor, there are several businesses related to automobiles, used car lots, tire lots, repair facilities, new car facilities, and we believe that this use would be consistent to what's going on there right now. Now, in having read the recommendations of the commission prior to this meeting, I'd just like to note that, A, the lot has already been repaved, the lot has been restriped, all the exterior lighting has been repaired, the building has been painted inside and out, all repair work has been done pursuant to proper permits, and the recommendations made regarding the operation of the facility are currently being complied with. The only two that aren't, one is the recommendation that the bay doors be closed other than when cars are entering or leaving the building, and that's not a problem. There is ventilation in the building, and we can do that and comply with any OSHA standards or any requirements of the fire marshal. One of the other concerns, and I suggest that this is probably the primary concern, is something else going to be done with the property to replace the gasoline retail operation? And the answer is no. We have absolutely no intention, or I should say my client has absolutely no intention, to sell used cars or anything else on the property other than to repair cars. The repaired automobiles will be put behind screening to the side and back of the building. And the other concern was the canopy. Are we going to leave it there? Our intention is, yeah, but the sole purpose of the canopy is that come late fall, early winter, lighting the canopy makes the place not only look open, but also makes it look safe. Also in inclement weather, if somebody comes to pick up their car, we can give them the car under the canopy, and if they need to transfer something from the automobile they came in, they can do so without getting wet. It just helps the business. But that is the sole use of the facility as a repair business, and hopefully you see it the same way. We believe it is consistent with what is going on in that area right now. That's pretty much my remarks, gentlemen.
All right. Does anybody from the audience care to speak on this issue, either for or against? Seeing nothing, we'll close the public comment. Does staff wish to comment on this?
Just that we have talked with the recommended conditions, talked those over with the applicants, and they have indicated that they are comfortable with those as proposed. And just one point of clarification, the first bullet point on page 3 of your staff report, the number 20, I believe, should actually indicate 18 improved parking spaces total.
Shannon, if you could, talk up a little.
Sure. The number 20 on the second bullet point on the third page of your reports this evening should indicate 18 improved parking spaces, I believe, instead of 20.
Okay. 10, 18. All right. Okay, so you're saying that they actually have 18 striped in
Right.
place right now?
Not 20.
Okay. And that meets all our codes?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, we'll start with the commissioners. Commissioner Thomas, if you would, please.
Are you open for business now?
Yes, sir. We're open for business pursuant to a letter from Mr. Kimball, which was given to us on the 23rd of July, and one of the conditions of opening was that we be on this agenda today.
Okay. No, I don't have a problem. I have no questions.
Okay, Commissioner Pill?
Yes, thank you. Well, it's nice to see a business that's run since, and I'm not sure it's been the same business since 1944. It's nice to see continuity in a long-term plan, especially when the number of economic cycles that have taken place during that time that have occurred. However, this is one of the gateway intersections, probably the busiest intersection in our village. And as such, this is not the type of business that I would welcome coming into the town to locate there. Now, that being said, I understand that they're already there. I still don't understand, both from the write-up and from your explanation tonight, what exactly happened with Shell. But that doesn't seem to be germane to this entire thing, since there's no plans to reopen a gas station there. But you mentioned the neighboring similar types of businesses. There are many, many types of automobile businesses in that area. Some to a much higher standard as far as property size and architecture and types of cars they're servicing and things like that, and some that are in the similar category. I have difficulty, and I want to hear what the rest of the commissioners have to say, supporting this in light of the fact that this is one of the busiest intersections we have, and I don't think this is the type of business we want center stage. That's it.
Okay, Commissioner Anton?
I disagree, as usual. I think a business already is there and established. They've lost their gasoline portion of the business. I can't see closing down a business or not giving him the opportunity to try and make a go at it with doing their automobile repairs. I mean, I wouldn't be able to go to sleep on that, knowing I shut a guy down because of this. So that's all I got.
Okay, Commissioner Van Buren?
Well, I would echo Commissioner Pill's concern in that while you are in the automobile business, as are many of your neighbors, you're not a very good revenue producer. You're a service producer in a very high visibility area. But having said that, you are also already in business. You have already committed to a great deal of expense to be where you are, so I would reluctantly approve of it.
Thank you.
Commissioner Fidesco?
I have a question. I know that previously I've seen tow trucks located on the property, and I'm under the understanding that they also operate a towing business?
No, sir.
No? Then,
Well, let me rephrase it. The operator of the business doesn't operating a towing business. He doesn't, but he does let the tow truck driver park his trucks there, and the reason for that is then he doesn't have to buy tow trucks. But the tow trucks will be kept in the back screened-in area when they're not in use.
Okay.
Now, I know if you've gone by there in the last 3 weeks, they have been parked in front, and the reason for that is the driveway was not completed. And-
I've seen it recently where the driveway's finished, blacktop's down and everything.
Right.
And I've seen the fence in the back and everything. My concern is that since there's a tow truck operator there, even if it's not the same owner, he's managing his business from that location. And my fear is that we're going to wind up with cars stacked up there that are in disrepair because they obviously were in an accident. If it's for the business to do a repair, I wouldn't have a problem with that happening, but my biggest problem is seeing a car there that's been totally smashed and sitting there for months on end, which I've seen in the past. And that's not the only location in town. There's another one at the other end of the town, at 63rd and Cass, that does the same thing. They literally store crashed vehicles.
This is not a body shop, sir.
Well, I understand, but if it's
But he's not collecting them. And there is...
one is a Shell gas station as well, and it solely that one doesn't even sell, doesn't even do service. It has a little convenience store in it.
No, they do auto repair.
Well, I rarely, rarely have I ever seen any auto repair going on there. I know they have a convenience store, and maybe I'm just not observant, but I know for a fact that there are plenty of cars that are in, damaged vehicles, not ones for repair, that are sitting around there, and I've seen them also at this location. And that's my concern. I mean, I don't have a problem with an ongoing business, operating there, given the gasoline portion of the business is gone. However, the guy seems to have a good client base for auto repairs. No problem with that. The problem is, with tow truck operations that, even if it's not the same owner, being operated out of there and the possibility of vehicles being stored there.
And Trustee Fidesco, can I interrupt? I think the special condition that staff recommended that the applicant agree to is that all vehicles awaiting service or repair shall be stored in the back parking lot area in the screened location and not piled up in the remainder of the parking lot in front of the business.
Well,
So
I understand when it comes to the auto repair business. I'm talking about if the vehicles aren't going to be repaired there from a standpoint, if the body is damaged, and the tow truck driver, because it's convenient, because he's operating out of that location, to store the vehicle there until the insurance company decides what to do with it, that's what I don't want to see.
And maybe that can be accomplished by further clarification of that special condition that just states that the remaining parking spaces in front of the business shall be used for employees, customers who are there to pick up a car, et cetera, or if they pull a car out, obviously, for a customer to pick up once it's completed repairs. I think we can handle that by the ordinance.
Okay, as long as we can do that.
And that's our understanding, sir. Before we came here today, I sat down and went over the conditions, and that is our understanding, that there can only be a finite number of cars there, and it's specific where they can be located. So to put a junk car there under the existing recommendations would eliminate a spot he could park a car needing repairs, and it would cut into his revenue. That won't happen.
Well, that was my concern.
Yes, sir.
No further questions.
Commissioner Fleet?
Yeah, my concern, having been by there for ages, and then looking at it today from the perspective of being a repair shop, is the awning, or what used to cover the islands.
Yes, sir.
The islands, and I'm just thinking to myself that the site would be improved if the gas station awning was gone. Just my 2 cents in looking at it. It still says gas station. It says, for trying to redefine that area, that if the awning was gone, it would help to redefine that area into a repair shop as opposed to something that used to be a gas station and is now a repair shop. And I know that there's 50-style gas stations, 1950-style gas stations that had the awning out over the, but that's sort of a different sort of building than what we're dealing with here. It's a separate awning. It's at a busy intersection. And I just thought that it would just be a cleaner view if the awning was gone. And I know paving's already done, and I was driving by there today. It's paved right up to the footings of the awning, but there are only 2 footings.
Because you've got a non-conforming building.
Just for further consideration. Does anybody feel, when you guys look at that without the awning, that it might have a cleaner look?
I think it would look better. However, I thought of the same thing as the owner thought of as far as wintertime and inclement weather, and it might be a good thing to have, so I'm kind of...
I agree.
But most of those awnings are put up so that a guy can bring in a 26-foot truck and fill it up with gasoline. That's why they're that tall, when you think about it. And when you think about the last time you stood under an awning when it was raining, if you got any wind at all, it's up so high. Just a thought.
Okay. I did have 1 or 2 questions. How best to phrase it? I have to agree with some of my fellow commissioners as to, I don't think you are the best use for such a high-traffic corner, which is the entrance to our village. But you are an ongoing business, and I will grant you that you've done a tremendous improvement to the property. It looked very good when I was out there today. I did have one other thing, and my fellow commissioners that, and perhaps John can steer me so I don't go too wrong. Would we care to perhaps recommend a sunset clause on this special use? So that the special use would not follow the land? And
For
as a
this
business were to
particular
cease,
business owner, yes.
You know, I don't know, does our village do that automatically now, or?
It's been a practice as of late, yes.
It varies. It hasn't been for all special uses. And again, by way of background, the village has the right to impose special conditions on a special use that are reasonable, including a sunset provision, which says it shall terminate within 10 years, 20 years, or some other reasonable time, or it shall terminate upon the cessation of the business or the sale of the business by the current owner, et cetera. We have done that. There's been some discussions about possibly even a text amendment to the zoning ordinance to make that a condition of all special uses so that they don't permanently run with the land, particularly in cases of abandonment or cessation of uses. But you certainly can impose a sunset in this case.
Mr. Chairman, staff would certainly be supportive of such a recommendation. We think this is a unique situation in that these are the same operators of the gas station, as has been pointed out, but they just lost the gasoline portion of the business. They're continuing to operate the business. We think that's a unique circumstance, but I think if they decide that they can't make it there, or they sell the business, close, whatever, we think the special use permit for the auto repair should cease at that point.
And then a new owner could still come in and apply for a new
Yeah.
special use permit. It doesn't foreclose the use. It just means you'd have to look at it again and see whether it's appropriate in the area.
I like it.
All right, and perhaps the attorney can correct me if I'm wrong, but if you were to try to expand this building at all, from what I see, you have a zero lot line clearance on the building as it exists, but if you were to try to put some service bays to the south of the building, you realize that you would have to be coming back in for site plan approval again.
Yes, sir, I understand that, and that's not contemplated at this time.
All right. One other question. Now, when I was there today, there were 3 tow trucks, 2 of the flatbed type, and then one where it was just like on the back of a small tractor with the hydraulic hook that you could go under and lift a car and pull it, more or less like how they repossess cars. Now, so that's 3 tow trucks.
I understand.
We're only talking about 2 here.
Yes, sir.
And if you do have the 2 flatbed tow trucks, are vehicles going to be stored on top of the tow trucks as they're parked in the lot?
No, sir. They're brought there to be taken off the truck and put in one of the spaces. The tow trucks were not in use. As we understand the recommendations of the commission are to be locked, or not locked, but placed behind the screening. Okay. Now, as I said before, I understand that hasn't been done, but habits are hard to break, and we've just recently asphalt, I believe it was effective Monday, that they finished the asphalting. But that is the objective. No more than 2 tow trucks, not in use, they're behind the fence.
And I'm sure that we will not have to worry about any for sale sign stuck in the window of a car, much as what Commissioner Fidesco talks about 63rd Street.
That's correct.
Okay, that's pretty much all I have to say. Any further questions? Any commissioners? Commissioner Pill?
Yes, I do have a question. Perhaps I misunderstood something, and you could take me through the sequence. Was Van Buren Enterprises the operator of the Shell station also?
Yes, sir.
So who was the owner of the property prior to June 1st?
Shell Oil was the owner of the
Shell
property.
Oil was, okay.
Van Buren Enterprises was the dealer.
So they did the maintenance as well as the fuel?
That's correct.
Sales. I understand now. I thought that they just did the maintenance as a subcontractor and someone else did the fuel.
No, sir.
So they did both.
Actually, that's what's going on now. Shell no longer owns their retail facilities. But at this time, that's what actually brought this all about. Up until the lease expired in May 31, Shell was the owner of the property, and Shell supplied the fuels directly. It was a dealer operation.
Who is the owner now of the property?
Right now, Van Buren Enterprises owns the
Van
property.
Buren purchased
Yes.
it on the
They
first
had no
right of
alternative.
refusal?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So they did that without coming to the village first to discuss any of the
That's correct.
consequences?
That's correct.
Sort of ready, fire, aim type of deal?
Well, it was kind of quick, and there were other issues regarding the gas station with gas tanks. I did read the ordinance. My interpretation was a little different, irrelevant, but I went with that. We had other issues to address, one being financing. This was a take it or leave it proposition. There was no negotiation. And there was no financing contingency in the agreement. So if he was going to do this, he had to do it. He had the money for the earnest money, and we had a preliminary commitment on the funding. But the funding wasn't in writing, and the back and forth, he was using private financing. As the deal went forward and he put the earnest money down, the terms changed. So we were left scrambling for funding. Okay, and that was our primary concern, because at that point in time, he already had the earnest money down. We had other issues with Shell regarding extension. I've done several of these deals with Shell, and Shell was always amiable, given the circumstance of the deal. But for some reason, this particular site had to close in Shell's discretion. The way these contracts read is that they can close as early as so many days after the due diligence is over. Shell has the right to extend it 60, 90 days at their whim. You have no right. If they say close and you can't close, theoretically you can lose the earnest money. Shell was only willing to give us like 15 days under the circumstances. So I'm not trying to make excuses, but there were other issues here. And we were pretty comfortable at the time, giving the length of time that the place had been operated as a repair facility. And my interpretation that there are two separate, distinguishable separate uses. The village's interpretation is that they're ancillary, and that the repair bay was ancillary to the gasoline. When the gasoline left, the ancillary use ceased, and that's why we're here today.
Thank you for the explanation.
Yes, sir.
No further questions.
No further?
Is the property contaminated at all as a result of the Shell gas station?
There's some, but there's no off-site, and Shell has an obligation under the agreement. That's one thing we did get, is that they are responsible for obtaining the NFR. It doesn't look there will be any additional work to be done. It will mainly be filing paper, whereas the tenant will agree to a commercial industrial closure, which means that the asphalt cover will be maintained, and so long as it's maintained, there's no threat to human health and safety, and therefore an NFR will issue stating that there's no further remediation necessary. And that is Shell's obligation.
No further comments? Okay, since we have a special use, we need a reading of the findings of fact.
Criteria number one, the proposed use at this location will not have any adverse effects above and beyond those inherently associated with such a special use, irrespective of its location within the zoning district. The property has been used as an automobile gas station and repair shop for decades as a legal non-conforming use. The repair shop at this location was ancillary to the primary use of a gas station, and the gas station use has now ceased. The existing building, which has existing overhead service doors, is most easily reused as an auto repair shop. The applicant proposes normal hours of operation and proposes to park vehicles awaiting service or pickup in a designated fenced and screened location. It is not expected that this proposed use will result in any adverse traffic, noise, or other hazards to the public at this location.
If you agree with this, please raise your hand. We are unanimous in agreement.
Criteria number two, the proposed use meets the special conditions of special condition number 7. The applicant proposes to park vehicles awaiting repairs and customer pickup in a fenced enclosure behind the existing building, improved with 9 parking spaces. As a result, the applicant will comply with special condition number 7.
If you agree with this, please raise your hands. We are unanimous in agreement. Okay, the findings of fact for special use are hereby approved and adopted. I would entertain a motion to recommend approval to the Board of Trustees under Planning and Zoning Item 10-025, special use permit request to allow an automobile repair shop in the B2 General Business District.
So move.
Second.
That's motion by Commissioner Van Buren, seconded by Commissioner Fleet. Question on the motion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Fleet,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes. Commissioner Fidesco?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Anton?
Yes.
Commissioner Pill?
Yes.
And Chairman Richard?
Yes. All right, as we spoke before earlier about a sunset clause, so I would entertain a motion to recommend approval to the Board of Trustees that a sunset clause be added to a special use if it is granted by the trustees.
So moved.
Second.
That's motion by Commissioner Anton, seconded by Commissioner Fidesco. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes. Commissioner Fidesco?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Anton?
Yes.
Commissioner Pill?
Yes.
Commissioner Plead?
Yes.
And Chairman Richard?
Yes. Any further motions on this?
The
All
only
right.
thing I would add is that the sunset clause should be commensurate with secession of the business. Or would that,
Yeah, you can do it, a couple ways. It can be cessation of the business, or it could be simply a change of ownership, which is what I
Yeah.
think staff recommended. It would be
Okay.
either of those
Yeah.
conditions. So if he wanted to sell this as a going concern, the new owner would have to come in. And the reason for the special use, in part, the justification is you're trying to accommodate an existing business owner who had an existing ancillary business.
So the amended motion is that,
The
Require a
motion's
vote?
fine. It says
Okay.
a sunset clause, and I think the minutes reflect what was discussed.
all right. All right, sir, you have our recommendation, and staff can tell you when you'll appear before Thursday evening committee of the whole.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now, I recognize the petitioner from our first item, and so I will call under old business, planning and zoning item 10-019, Amgad Hana of Alpha Motors with Rebecca Michaels, Prima Vista LLC, regarding the property located at 301, 311 East Ogden for the following. A, revised site plan approval. If you would please sign in.
they're not sworn, do you have to swear?
Mr. Chairman, the folks in the second row are not either.
I know,
You
I'm
might
going to
wanna
catch
get
them.
Good evening.
Okay, first, before you say anything, we have to swear you in for
Sure.
any testimony. And I noticed some folks in the second row in the back. Will you be giving any testimony tonight, either for or against an item?
Mr. Kirsch, also.
So if you would, you need to be sworn in. Okay, if you would, please rise up. So I swear that any testimony I give this evening shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God.
I do.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. For those of you who didn't catch it, I'm Rebecca Michaels, an attorney for Prima Vesta, the parent company for Alpha Motors of Westmont. As you can see from the agenda, this matter is up again on the revised site plan approval, and I'm just going to go quickly through the staff recommendations and just make my comments pursuant to, there's 5 of them, so. I'm going to actually skip number 1 temporarily and go through 2 through 5 and then come back to number 1. Number 2 of the staff recommendations are that all spaces must be striped. We obviously have no objection to that. We agree with that. We think that that's completely reasonable. And in fact, on the site plan that we submitted, there are some staff recommendation changes made to it, and it also indicates that the traffic direction should also be marked on the pavement. So we think, in addition to the spaces being striped, that we'll go ahead and show the directional the directions on the pavement. So that's with respect to number 2. Number 3, the staff is making a comment as well as a recommendation concerning, actually, I think if we put this on the screen, is that possible?
Yes.
It'll be more obvious what I'm talking about. There we go. Okay. All right. So, we're talking about this portion right here. When we bought the property, this portion was open to Ogden so that there was an entrance and an egress to Ogden Avenue here as well as here. And we just felt that the proximity of those two was just caused a lot of congestion and unsafe traffic practice. So we have it temporarily blocked off with cars right now, and we instead have opened up the entrance on Black Hawk Drive to allow for flow of vehicles. And the staff recommendation with respect to that item is that they agree with that. They think that that is actually promoting the safety of the property. And they've also requested that we apply for an IDOT permit to have it permanently blocked off, which we intend to do pursuant to the staff recommendations. Number 4 talks about the parking stall dimensions and what the village code is, as well for long-term parking, as well as what standard engineering practices are, which I don't see a huge difference between what the village required. The village requirements are 9 by 18, and the standard engineering practice is 8.5 by 18. There were some spaces back here behind the building that didn't comply with that. However, the staff, due to the fact that it's not really, doesn't really constitute long-term parking because we're storing vehicles that are going to be for sale there, that the staff, what I understand to be the staff recommendations is that they'll allow some of the smaller stalls as long as under no conditions we park any customer parking or employee parking in those spots, and that on the site plan that we submit, they want another site plan submitted to the board, the village board, indicating exactly which spots those will be, which we have no objection doing that. And then the 5th staff recommendation are just deals with a general clause that says that under no circumstances do they want any of the drive aisles to be less than 24 feet in width. And the reason for some of the elimination of the spots is due to the fact that in some areas of the lot, there are going to be, it's only 21 feet. So again, we agree with the staff recommendations concerning the elimination of spots. I think the site plan that we submitted was requesting 114 spots, and with the changes made by the staff, it brings it down to 91. And generally we agree with, this is actually going back to point number 1, which is that the elimination of 20 spots. We generally agree. The only comment that we wanted to make is of the major problem with respect to the 24 feet driveway is that these spots over here, these spots currently are along a median, and our future plans, maybe next summer, are to remove that median, eventually to remove that median, and at that point, we'd probably come in and, get board approval for that later on. So, I don't know if Dr. Hanna wanted to say anything, but these are, based on the site, the staff recommendations, and the last meeting, we believe that this proposed site plan is reasonable.
I did have one question then before we go any further. In the front of the easternmost building, you show 1, 2, 3, 4, looks like 5 or 6 parking spaces with the handicap, but you have automobiles parked in front of that up to the sidewalk on the elevated ramps. They're not shown on this print.
Because the reason they're not shown, those are actually, they're on the grass. The ramps are on the grass.
I understand, but does that constitute a parking space or not?
No, those, as of now, would not be permitted.
If I could just jump in for a second.
Please.
The requests that you saw in July were being held for village board approval until this issue got worked out. So the special conditions that you discussed a couple of months ago, including the parking on racks, parking in the front yard setbacks, those will all be brought forward to the village board for consideration, and I think you'll probably find that will not be included if they grant approval.
Okay, because I see another omission, and that is the building now has 6 cars parked with striped spaces on the east side of the building.
Yes.
And I'm not seeing that marked on this print also.
Because at the last meeting, what we decided to do was to move those spaces to the back, which is what this proposed site plan has.
Okay, but as of now, you've got 6 cars parked there with striped spaces.
Yeah, probably we'll paint over those, or,
All right.
we might leave the stripes there. I don't know if the village would object to that, if we painted over
Okay.
them or left them, yeah.
That was, is anybody from the public here to speak on this issue? Okay, we'll close the public comment. Staff, if you have any clarification that you would like to,
I think just to add to the comment on the parallel spots on the east side of the building, those are going to pose a similar circulation issue and restrict the drive aisle width. So if the commission was comfortable with them being removed by painting over the striping, that's probably the best route to go. The 21-foot wide drive aisle, that was the minimum width that is shown on the west side of the building, and because it seems to be working for this site, staff was comfortable with allowing that to continue as long as it wasn't any less than that. And the petitioners have demonstrated their willingness to eliminate some of the more troublesome parallel spots in the main parking lot, which will definitely help mitigate some of the concerns that we had at the staff level.
all right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
if we could,
please, Mr.
in a much more general sense, just want to go on record as saying how much of a pleasure it's been to work with these petitioners. They've been willing to work with staff and accept recommendations that were made in the interest of public safety and traffic safety on the location. They have willingly volunteered to work with our new Westmont Auto Mile Consortium group. They were invited to join. They are now full and complete dues-paying members. We're very pleased with the improvements that they've made to the facility. We think they've already demonstrated that they're going to be very fine corporate citizens in the village of Westmont.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. If I may have one item of clarification. Now, we're doing a site plan approval. The site plan that is up there with the eliminated spots as what the staff has indicated, that's what we're voting on.
The plan that is up there is the one that we notated the comments that we had. So you could approve it with those recommendations or require that perhaps their changes are made with a new plan before they go to the board.
I know she's deferring to you, but I'd just like to make a comment. We'd respectfully request that this one be approved just in the interest of time, and that we would fully comply in just essentially making a cleaner copy of exactly what is here.
I understand, but, so this is a site plan that we will be voting on, just so everybody, so we know where we start.
With the 5 conditions that
Of course.
staff has outlined.
Of course. Okay, we'll go with the commissioners, if we will. Chairman, Commissioner Fleet?
Almost a promotion there. No, it's almost, please. No.
You got promoted.
Yeah, thank you. The question of the ramps, where they are right now, you plan on incorporating them into the
That's a
sites
good
here?
question, and originally, at the original meeting, I don't remember seeing you there, so maybe you were absent, but at the original meeting, the staff recommendation was that we remove the ramps, and we had requested them due to the fact that, the previous owner had them. They're quite costly, actually. I was surprised to find out. They're very expensive, and pursuant to the closing, in the bill of sale, we paid for them. We would like to keep them, and we requested to keep them. The staff recommended that we remove them. However, that issue hasn't been voted on yet. So we did go on record as requesting to keep them.
Yeah,
I don't know ultimately what the board's decision will be on that.
Yeah, one more issue, there is a pond underneath this Rex, so if we move the Rex, it's gonna be dangerous. I mean,
It's swampy.
yeah, I mean, I tried to get, my contractor tried to get like a permit or something to, close this pond and, make it like same level like the street. There was, he told me it's gonna be a big issue, so I think keep the Rex, closing this pond better than just take out the Rex and leave it as a, big hole.
Well,
it's dangerous.
procedurally, my question is procedurally, is it this board that votes on that, or? 'cause
No,
the
that's
staff-
going to go to the village board as part of the special use approval. It was discussed by this commission that would be a special condition on the special use permit, and it was discussed that this is applied to all new or used automobile dealerships within the village. There are certain restrictions. One of them is to prohibit the elevation of cars on racks, and that's been uniformly applied to all dealerships at least since '98, since I've been involved in the village. And if there is one being used in the village either predated the special use approval or staff hasn't caught up with enforcement yet.
Right, I understood from going back after the last meeting and reading the ordinance that it is there, or, I mean, not the ordinance, but I read something that supported the notion that it was a part of the village code. But
It's not in any of the village ordinances. It's just something that has been the practice of the village with special use approval. It's not under consideration tonight, though.
Right.
One, they don't show it on the site plan, but two, it's going to be taken care of by the village board, one way or the other, and they may vote to allow the racks.
Yeah.
That's up to them.
Mr. Chairman, the only thing, and I did not realize that this was a wet area underneath there, we may want to go back and look at that. I don't know if that's a designed stormwater detention area, which might cast
can't fill.
a different light on the whole subject, but we will certainly research that before that matter gets to the village board.
Okay.
Yeah, even I tried even to put fountain in there to make the area looks nice. They said no, so.
was that your only question? in
Well,
regards
one
to-
other question is there a difference in elevation between between Ogden Avenue and the level at which the cars will be parked on?
It's kind of, I'm not an architect, but it kind of slopes down, so it's lower.
So the cars actually, as you're driving by and looking at the cars, you tend to see more rooftops
Roof, yeah.
than you do side profiles or wheels of cars and, okay. No further questions.
Commissioner Fidesco?
I really like the recommendations of the staff, and I think that it's going to be better for your business, because when I drove by there not too long ago, it seemed there were too many cars on the property. I mean, it seemed like they were jammed in there. I think that
Well, business is doing well.
I understand that, but as a potential customer, I'd be concerned that I couldn't see the cars because there were so many.
Yeah.
You know, you want to be able to kind of step back and look around. And
Last
so-
week there was some, we were doing some cleaning in the back because, we didn't clean in the back. So maybe that's why they moved all the car from back and they were like cleaning the trees,
Well, I don't know. It's been a week or so since I've
3
been
days
by there,
they was
maybe.
working in the back.
But I like the current recommendation, and I would approve the, as drawn. No further questions or comments.
Commissioner Van Buren?
Yeah, I appreciate your willingness to work with staff in working out some of these issues, and as long as you comply with that, I don't really have a problem.
Commissioner Anton?
No comments.
Commissioner Pill?
I appreciate your willingness to work also. I do have one question. If we look at the drawing that's up on the screen right now, to the left side where the two circles are, in between that, there are, which would be just south of the top circle, there's 4 E's for eliminate, I assume. Now, are those 4 parking spots there?
Those are spots for cars that are for sale,
For
yes.
sale, yeah.
Because right now, there's 12 cars parked in those 4 spots.
Currently?
I was there last night counting them. And, I mean, because this shows 4 parallels. You've got 12 diagonal cars and then one underneath the sign where we've got the, that would be right in that top circle. Now, I don't really mind one way or the other, but I just want to understand it. So you're agreeing to eliminate that entire, because that's a pretty visible area
Well,
there, right along the street.
You're
gonna-
right. You're right, but if you can also see that the elimination of those spots, but the staff recommends addition of spots elsewhere that will also help us to move those cars. Like, for example, there was a diagonal car here, my finger's blocking it right here in the corner, and it actually gives us an extra spot to remove the diagonal one and add a parallel one, and the same thing happens over here. Being able to park more in the back, I mean, we're trying, it's going to hurt us to agree to this, but we're willing to do it.
Commissioner, I think the concern there was the width of the drive aisle and allowing for safe traverse of the area. And I think that's, we're looking
This
at
is safe traversing by who?
any cars that would be driving through there, customer cars,
Well, under no circumstances, I mean, customer cars
Fire
don't
truck
usually
would
drive
ever
through
need
this
to
lot.
get to that spot.
Well, I think, on occasion, a customer will drive through the lot, peruse
Yeah,
what's there,
probably to
maybe
there.
try to make the turn. So that's why we're concerned about the width of the drive aisles on
But
the
also,
property.
but also in regards to what you mentioned, that when I spoke to my client about this, obviously, it's going to be something that we're going to have to work on. We're going to have to remove some of the cars. However, like I mentioned, our future intention is to remove this median here, and perhaps we'd be able to regain some of those spots in the future. by
Okay,
coming
I just want to understand, because in the two between the entrance and the light post, which is there are 5, and between the light post and that diagonal, there are 7 more cars. There were 12. And that's a lot of cars to eliminate out of 4 spots, but I just want to make sure you were clear on it. I don't have a problem with it. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Thomas?
And those parking places it'll be an accurate picture by the time it gets to the village?
What we're planning on doing is just taking the staff recommendations and making a cleaner copy of this. Exactly.
Okay. This is not the first time that I've observed something bump in the road and staff comes in and walks the client through and helps a transition that otherwise could have been
Disastrous.
could have killed the deal. And I appreciate the staff and the client working together, and that's what staff is here for, in my opinion. And I appreciate their help. That's all I have.
I also would like to express my pleasure in the ability and how nicely you've worked with our staff and addressed the concerns of them. I commend you highly on that. I did have one question at the south end of the building. If you had to get a fire engine in there, I do not see how a fire engine would get, actually, to the east side, the south side, or the west side of that building. It could be very, very difficult for a fire engine. Has the fire department seen this site plan and looked at it at all?
I believe they have, Shannon?
Yeah, I actually don't have a copy of their comments, but they've looked at
I
this
saw that, but I
previously.
really didn't see them address anything about.
And again, Chairman, that was part of the concern for the drive aisle widths. We want to make sure that, as difficult as it is to get there, but at least they could get in off of the, Black Hawk there, straight down and run the hoses from there by getting the fire truck up close to the building and then perhaps around the corner if necessary.
Okay, just so they're aware of what they may have. And the only other problem I think you might have is if we have a snowy winter, good luck to you. I have no further questions.
Global warming.
Any further questions from these? Okay. Okay, I would entertain a motion to recommend approval to the Board of Trustees under Planning and Zoning Item 10-019, a revised site plan approval.
So moved?
Second.
That's motion by Commissioner Pill, seconded by Commissioner Anton. Question on the motion? And may we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Fidesco?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Anton?
Yes.
Commissioner Pill?
Yes.
Commissioner Fleet?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes, and Chairman Richard.
Yes. Okay, you have our recommendation, and staff can tell you when you'll go before a Thursday evening committee of the whole.
Thank you very much.
Okay, good luck to you. Planning and zoning item 10-026, Errol J. Kirsch Architects on behalf of Mr. and Mrs. Gandhi, MD, with Robert Allegra of DNB LLC regarding the property located at the southwest corner of 35th Street and Route 83 for the following. A, map amendment request to rezone from OR Research District to R6 Special Residence District for the purpose of constructing an independent and assisted living facility. B, zoning code variance request to permit a reduction in the minimum required lot area. Code requires 40,000 square feet. and 27,000 square feet is proposed. Item C, zoning code variance request to permit an increase in the number of dwelling units permitted per acre. Code allows 23 units and 54 units are proposed. Item D, zoning code variance request to permit a decrease in the minimum lot area required for a 54-unit building. Code requires 54,000 square feet and 27,000 square feet is proposed. E, zoning code variance request to permit a reduction in the minimum size of one-bedroom units. Code requires 550 square feet per unit and 425 square feet per unit is proposed. Item F, zoning code variance request to permit a reduction in the required front yard setback from 35th Street. Code requires 40-foot and 13.75 foot is proposed. Item G, zoning code variance request to permit a reduction in the required interior side yard setback. Code requires 10-foot and 7.8 foot is proposed. Item H, zoning code variance request to permit a reduction in the required rear yard setback. Code requires 20-foot and 12.7 foot is proposed. Item I, zoning code variance request to permit a reduction in the required supplemental setback along Route 83. Code requires 75-foot and 37.1 foot is proposed. Item J, site and landscaping plan approval. Good evening, sir.
Good evening to all of you, and thank you for the opportunity to present our proposed project, the Cove of Westmont, for your review and consideration. The project will contain 54 units that will be used for both independent and assisted living purposes. There will be 10 efficiency units, 39 one-bedroom units, 5 one-bedroom and den units, 54 units total, and the ancillary facilities mostly located on the first floor. The site plan is planned for a self-contained environment, both as an interior and an exterior. In fact, I have with me tonight some revisions to that site plan requested by staff that relate to directional arrows and to the pardon me, there's one more item, and I'd like to pass that out, and I'll relay that to you if I might. These are the two comments to date that we received from staff, and they are shown to you as I said, directional items on the site plan. I'll put that up for a moment, and we can review that area. The second item was the location of the sidewalk on the south end of the plan, having been too close to that property line, so it was moved back 3 foot at minimum from that property line. The self-contained description I gave earlier relates to providing for the occupants at multi-levels, grade, first, second, and then at third and fourth, exterior environments, whether they be a balcony, a landscaped area on the second level, which I'll show shortly, and on the first level, which you see here, in the form of a exterior deck area that overlooks to the west. Parking on the site is provided in excess of the amount required and does not seek a variance for that purpose. There are 25 spaces located on the parcel at the east side and closer to Route 83, as well as access through a lower level entry to parking in that lower level of 12 spaces. The second level location indicates again another exterior form of environment and use for the occupants in the form of a solarium, as well as a putting green and a lounge area that is on the exterior. Access to that area is given to those occupants on the second floor. And if you will note, please, there is a nursing station at that location on the north side of the building. Third level, as well, will include exterior environments at 3 different deck locations. Fourth repeats that by providing additional deck locations with exterior use. I make this point as strong as I have because I think the site, as has been commented on, is isolated. It is at the end of a line, if you will, and you may recall there was a gas station there many years ago, and it had access to both Route 83 and 35th Street. Our request, which will have to be reviewed by the Village of Oak Brook on the north side of the parcel, will be to access 35th Street and provide for them, per their request, both the engineering and the traffic study they've indicated in a letter respondent to staff in your village. In the review that we had carried forth with staff, several topics came about, including the material used on the exterior and the amount of the variances requested. We feel that based upon the historical desire to sell and occupy this site, from everything from a residential unit, a combined office residential unit, commercial use, medical office unit, that this use fits, I believe, the purpose and location, where if you self-contain the site and bring the occupants on that site to use it, the need to go off-site can be solved by a van or delivery to grocery stores and other locations. The parking on these type of facilities is usually minimal because even though we meet and exceed the requirement, the use just isn't there. There's seldom a car in ownership, and there's more a use of the van, a use of a car that's rented by the occupants, and the density is far below what the standard is for a standard residential occupancy. All of those uses that I mentioned, other than this elderly care for independent assisted living, have similar residential and office requirements for setbacks, height of the building, density, and lot area. All of those requirements are exceeded by any building seeking approval on this site because the size is not considered in the layout of the zoning code. The height is one element that is given to a small or a large site that can be complied with easily. Therefore, in this case, we're not asking for any height variance. However, the density issue, the lot area issue, and the setbacks do have a greater impact on a smaller site than they do a larger site. This is the one that is available, and this is the one we've chosen to work with. Frankly, in part because of its location. The variances that are being sought here, first is a change of zoning to allow as a special use this project to exist. An assisted living facility can only be done, as I understand it, with a special use permit. variance allowing us to go from 40,000 square feet down to 27,000 square feet, again, relates to a general application of this code to many sizes and types of properties. We're faced with a lesser-sized property with a reasonable density for a reasonable return to the ownership, Dr. and Mrs. Gandhi, who will be operating this facility should you choose to approve it. Similarly so, the code would allow 23 units versus the 54 we're seeking. Again, the size relates to the request in this particular case. I repeat that the height is not an issue because it seems to cross over that line of consideration whereby the size is not relative. The height is open to any parcel size. So in this case, we only have a 4-story building. It's unnecessary to seek a variance for that. The code requires a 550 square foot per unit minimum area within the unit. That again is relative to a residential application of independent type of living. In this case, we have assisted, elderly, and independent living for that age group. There's no other intended purpose for the use of this site. We have found in 200-unit complexes to 350-unit complexes, the range is somewhere between 400 and 500 square feet per unit as you relate to that particular size. That is for a 1-bedroom unit. The next issue, item F, is that we are seeking a reduction in the requirement for the setback at the north end, front end of the property. 40 foot is required. The building itself on stories 2 through 4 is set back only 13.75 feet. It cantilevers over the first floor, which is 37 feet set back from the property line on the north. The next issue, item G, is the 10-foot code requirement versus the 7.8 foot that we are proposing, and that's on the interior side of the lot. That would be the west side on the upper portion of your plans or on the screen, and that would be facing the detention pond that is located on the Quail Ridge property. Item H requires a 20-foot setback, and ours is a 12.7-foot proposed setback, and that's in the rear yard. That would be at the south end of the property, facing an inclined elevation up to other offices and a development to the south side of this property. Item I is the 75-foot setback, and as opposed to the 37.1-foot setback that we have between Route 83 and the east portion of the property. That would be located here. On the findings of fact, there were 3 items for us to respond to, and one of which was the density issue. And as I've said earlier in this conversation, I believe that this size site, it's viewed broadly in the code, is not, if you will, fairly attended to when it comes to density and the use on the property and making a reasonable return on that parcel. It is adjacent to Quail Ridge, which is an office development, and I don't believe that in character, we are opposing what is existing, whether it be Quail Ridge to the west, the office facilities to the south, Route 83 to the east, or the sheltered kind of landscape parcel which shields the residential to the north in Oak Brook. And as well, you're looking over 35th Street at that point. So the character of the site, I don't believe, is changed in any way by the advent of this parcel. I'd like to revert back for a moment to the historical nature of this site. I became interested in it with Mr. Allegra, the current owner, probably 4 years ago, and was involved in probably 2 different submissions that never reached your desk. He was probably involved in 2 others himself, all of which were the other purposes: medical, office, residential, higher density, and higher elevations. This is an unusual parcel in trying to make a fit, a self-contained use, a height that isn't objectionable, and an environment, if you will, that's pleasing to the purposes around it. With that, I'd be happy to open this up to questions or concerns that you folks might have.
Okay, we'll do that in a moment. We'll go to the public first. Is there anybody from the public who will speak on this issue? If you would, please, give us your name and sign in. I did swear you in, I presumed it.
My name is Jim Whiteside, and I am a representative of the ownership of Quail Ridge Office Center. And the ownership of Quail Ridge is also the owners of 777 Oakmont Lane in Oakmont Center Park, 1111 Pasquinelli Drive, and 1010 Executive Court. All told, they own, approximately 315,000 square feet of space, and have an investment there and in this village of about $50 million. But basically, we object, to this proposal. We object to the zoning change to the R6 district. The R6, permitted use, we don't believe is compatible with the office research district, that the parcel is part of right now. To the south and the west, obviously there's office research, and we believe it should continue that way. Secondly, we believe that the proposed project is extremely dense and contains, very little green space. The project, plans to put about, 54,000 square feet of building on just 27,000 square feet of land, and we just believe that that's too dense, and it's not consistent with, and it's out of character with the other developments, and certainly with Quail Ridge, and other properties in that area. And also, office properties in the park. If you drive up, Oakmont Center Drive, I mean, you'll see a lot of greenery. It's a beautiful park, and I think the village has done a wonderful job of aiding the development of the park, and I think, in the suburban market, it's considered, it's considered a very beautiful park, and, we just believe that when you permit density like this that goes contrary to what's going on, in that area. In specifics for Quail Ridge, we have a concern regarding the setbacks, that the applicant is seeking. We believe the building is being constructed too close to the property line of Quail Ridge, and our current tenants will have a problem with what's being proposed here. And, we believe that this is going to negatively impact our ability to retain our tenants and also attract new tenants, into the village and into this property. The development as proposed seeks to put more than double the number of dwelling units permitted on a site of this size. 23 permitted and 54 are proposed. And the one-bedroom units are almost 25% smaller than the required area. And we just don't believe that there's a justification for this. There's nothing unique from a land use and planning perspective about this site. It's a rectangular parcel that's 0.6 of an acre, and we just believe that a very large number of units are being attempted to be put on this parcel, and we just don't believe that there's a justification for it. We believe that there's nothing about the rectangular parcel at this location that is so unique that it justifies the substantial reductions in required front, side, and rear yards that are proposed. So, in closing, we find this proposal to be excessive in light of the size of the parcel and out of character for what's in the area, Quail Ridge, which, in Quail Ridge, we have 96,000 square feet on 10 acres, and, what's being proposed here is 54,000 square feet on 0.6 of an acre. And, as a result of this density, we would not permit, the applicant to connect to our sewer system. And that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anybody else from the public, please, if you will?
Good evening. My name is William Miller. I live at 48 Tartan Lakes Drive. I guess this may be about 3/4 of a mile north of the property you're talking about tonight. I guess I would have a couple questions. One is on the water retention. The west side of this, where they're asking for variances, I'm not sure what the distance is that is from the pond that's there, but I'm sure most of you know that over this summer, we've had a lot of problems down there with water. That square footage now allows water to percolate into the land. If you build a building on top of that, you're going to collect all that water and you're going to need somewhere to get rid of it. So we feel that that's a concern. I also have a concern on the number of parking spots for the number of units. I guess I'd like to see something from someone with the people that will be using the facilities, family members coming to visit, that type of thing. We have a facility, Mays Lake, right next to us at Tartan Lakes, and the amount of cars going in and out of there is quite heavy, and there's a lot of cars, people visiting, that type of thing. I'm wondering how the cars per unit, that type of thing would average with this as well. So it seems to me it's a little, we're asking for 54 units. If you have 9 taken out for staff, which I read somewhere, I heard about, that doesn't leave a lot for people coming to visit loved ones and that type of thing. So I'd like to see something on that as well, to get more explanation. Okay? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anybody else who will speak on this? Please, if you would, sir. Give us your name and sign in.
Bob Allegra, I think most of you might remember me. I'm the owner of the property and have been up here several times in the past. I'm actually very excited about this parcel. As Fred will probably attest, we've probably been working on this parcel together for 7 years. I think just about after you got here, I think we started working on this parcel. And we've tried everything at this location. I mean, I've gone from veterinarians because there's a dog park down the street. I've gone from doctors, from cosmetic surgeons, to office buildings, to multiple use office, commercial use. We had in front of this board a 9-story building that we had reduced down to 7 stories, which was accepted probably 4 or 5 years ago. The setbacks on that were only 5 feet on 3 of the locations for setbacks. We had the fire department here. They were completely on board with everything. So after meeting the doctor and meeting Earl, this is probably an ideal setup for this location. First of all, I think the view, the presentation coming into Westmont, how do you focus this?
They'll focus it.
I think the presentation coming in down 83, from being an old eyesore, which it's been for a number of years, being a vacant parcel, and as everybody remembers, when I first bought it, it was grown with trees, and it took me probably 3 or 4 days to have everybody clean that out, and now I've let it go a little bit this summer. But I think it's a great, great opportunity for Westmont to be able to give some employment to some people in Westmont. It is a completely self-contained unit versus what some people objected to, the commercial office complex that I had originally proposed, where you would have residents going in and out. These residents are not drivers. Earl will be able to attest along with the doctor, because the doctor, I believe, has 20, or the consultant they have has 20 years of experience in these facilities. And I think there's 3 facilities in Wisconsin, is that correct, that he's presently managing? So they have a good traffic count. No one would ever endeavor in doing the kind of expense here that they would do and not have the adequate amount of parking, because you obviously wouldn't have tenants and you wouldn't have customers if that was a problem down the road. So I'm very excited about this. I think it's a great use, and I think that you guys should be excited and welcome it also. And I believe that everyone's worked with Fred and Shannon on this, and I think that we're at a location and a facility that's going to work well and be proud of the community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else from the public who will speak on this? Do you care to address the concerns that the gentleman?
Yes, I do, if I might. On the gentleman who spoke on behalf of Quail Ridge, that parcel was developed, I quite frankly don't know the year, but it was some time ago. The open space, the cost of the land, the issues at hand do not replicate what is today's conditions. The proximity of one of their buildings to this site is quite close. We didn't plan that. That is their southeasterly most corner of a building. This corner here, I hope you can see that outline of the building here. It is a lovely park-like atmosphere within the facility. I would question, if not disagree, with any of their tenants being concerned about what this facility is, or its traffic count, or its visual impact upon their environment, because I think they have as well a self-contained inward viewing environment. They spent a lot of time, a lot of money to create that, and I respect that. But I don't see as how it would affect, our project would affect their sense of the environment or their leasing of spaces. We all know that's a function of money, cost per square foot, amenities they're going to offer to their tenant. The zoning issue that he objected to is one of necessity. The necessity being that you cannot do this kind of facility anywhere in your village without a special use permit, changing it to residential with a specific purpose. Mr. Miller, who spoke in behalf of his concern of water gathering on any location, as well as probably or possibly more on the Quail Ridge site due to the fact that we're building a building on the adjacent site. I think everybody on this board should know that your engineering staff, when they did Quail Ridge, had the foresight to include the amount of detention required on this site in their detention pond. There's an inlet shown on an engineering document that attests to that reality, and I've verified that with your engineering personnel. Therefore, the water that is produced not only on their site at Quail Ridge, but the water the other gentleman might be concerned about where we're building a building has also been consumed in that detention pond by natural drainage elevations. We've had the lot engineered to the extent that we know the grades and which way the slopes work. I'd be happy to offer as much comparative information on parking for your review, Mr. Miller, from other sites that relate to this same type of use. As we are going to continue and produce information for the Village of Oak Brook to answer their concerns on access to their street, 35th Street, that's in their jurisdiction. Thank you for the time and your willingness to hear this issue. We really appreciate it.
Okay, very good. Is there any further, please, if you would, sir, give us your name and sign in.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us to present our plan. My name is Dr. Gandhi. My wife and I are very much interested in bringing this facility in the city of Westmont. I'm not an architect, obviously. I can't really speak about the zoning and other aspects that the things that were opposed. But I wanted to just present my vision as what the vision is to bring this type of facility in the area, to have the folks here to understand the purpose of bringing this is not by no means to hurt another business, but our population is growing, and our goal is to create this facility to provide home for our elderly patients. Our elderly population. In order to address your concern about the parking spaces, is most people coming into these type of facilities, if you visit any facility, any such facilities, similar facilities, people coming into living in assisted living places are most likely patients who have had physical decline or vision decline, or for any reason can't drive anymore. So the residents living in the facility are usually going to come in who's not going to be driving. And our goal is to provide a transportation for them, to take them to to buy groceries or take them to their doctor's appointment and so forth. The employees, of course, there will be employees, but we are going to obviously keep them to what what the requirements are. So we're not talking about 25 employees working in the building. Families come and visit. It's not that all families come at the same time. They go in and out, and that's true. Families do come and visit their loved ones. And they don't come every day. I see patients at 5 different assisted living facilities currently. And I see their parking spaces are never full, number one. Never see family members there. When I go there, ask the nurse when was the last time family member showed up. Oh, it hasn't been here in a week. I happen to call them usually to talk about their mom or dad who I'm seeing. So the idea is that to bring business into Westmont, number one, create jobs, hopefully, create jobs in Westmont. There will be other services, other businesses will come into the city of Westmont having other such businesses. The idea is to provide living environment for our elderly who, we all know nursing home and the reputation of nursing home in this country. You know, if you have a loved one who's aging, the last thing you want to do is put them in a nursing home. And to a certain extent, it's true. So these type of buildings are becoming more and more popular because they don't want to go to nursing home. They can't live alone anymore. Where are they supposed to go? So the idea is to bring this type of facility into the area to provide the home environment for our residents. And we are going to definitely keep in mind that the outside environment is pleasant for them. Some of these patients, some of these people, I keep saying patients, I'm a doctor, I'm sorry, but people who are going to move in, they like greenery, they like environment. So we've been working with Errol to create more greenery around as much as we can, as allowed by the committee, to allow, to bring more greenery and more serenity in the area. So I strongly believe that what their concerns are doesn't really fit into, you know, what we're trying to do here. So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you, sir. Please, if you would.
My name is Janice Mack, and I also live at Tartan Lakes, and I just wanted to maybe give you something else to base your comparison on, not a for or against, but my mom I have at Westmont Nursing Home, Nursing and Rehab, 6501 Cass. And right now they have plenty of parking, so this is information only. Before they expanded their parking lot, I don't know if some of you remember, they did buy an adjacent piece of property and enlarged it on the east side. Before they enlarged it, they did not have enough parking, and many times, especially on weekends and holidays, we would wind up trying to park on the street somewhere. I don't think at this facility this way, there's not going to be a place to park on the street, but if you could use their parking space numbers before they enlarged their parking area, maybe that would just give you a better idea of what kind of problem we might have. I don't even know, I can't give you a number of what they had, but just as a thought for you to get a comparison on.
Okay, thank you. Shannon, perhaps we could get a count then as to how many original parking spaces for the population, and then
Sure, sir.
how many are the new. So I'm sure the board would like that. Okay.
Could I add to that, Shannon, the density of the place as well, number of units?
Yes, absolutely. That would have to be a part of the calculation.
Okay. Is there anybody else who will speak on this issue? Okay, we'll close the public comment. I would ask for any input from staff.
Okay, just a couple of points and then some comments on some additional correspondence we've received. The detention question had come up during the public hearing portion of the meeting. That's going to have to be resolved during the final engineering process. The site does have to be engineered. As Mr. Kirsch had referenced, there does appear to be a connection that he's working with our village planning engineer to determine if that capacity is in fact sufficient. And then going forward, if it is, there would have to be agreement that tie-in could be made. If there isn't capacity, or if that agreement can't be reached, it would have to be solved for in another way. So no permit would ever be issued unless the detention had been fully considered. This has been a difficult site, as the petitioners have referenced. The access issues, the lot size, and the difficulty in getting the infrastructure, including stormwater, sewer, and then just the water connection itself, have been exceptionally difficult and pose significant cost for anyone who did seek to redevelop this property. We did go through a preliminary review prior to the application being received by this commission. The plans that are before the commission this evening were actually the second iteration. A great deal of comments were made and improvements were made between those sessions. And in fact, now we have the third draft before us this evening, which staff will take a closer look at following this meeting, since this is the first time we're looking at it as well. As far as the correspondence that's been received, Mr. Whiteside mentioned a letter. We had received that late this afternoon. That's been presented to the committee, and consistent with his presentation this evening, on behalf of the Quail Ridge ownership, they do object to the proposal. Earlier today as well, the Forest Preserve District of DuPage presented a letter to the village. They are in support of the project. They did not have any notable concerns with the development as proposed. We did receive correspondence from the village manager of the Village of Oak Brook, which has been presented to you. That was received yesterday, and staff did have an opportunity to respond to the concerns of the Village of Oak Brook. They had suggested that this commission consider tabling the items for consideration until the October meeting, and had requested that the petitioner provide a traffic study, set of engineering drawings, current plat of survey, and then obviously a stormwater management plan prior to this commission making their recommendation. That has been conveyed to the petitioners. They wish to proceed despite that recommendation, and have indicated that they're concurrently planning to address those comments with the Village of Oak Brook. And then finally, our village landscape architect has provided comments for you. Generally, the site plan or the landscaping information is good. However, there are some points of clarification that will be necessary prior to submitting for permit. That's all I have, unless there are questions.
Okay, Mr. Semenek?
Just a couple comments. The permissible height in the current zoning, which is office research, is 75 feet. It's 65 feet in the proposed zoning district, and 53 feet is proposed with this project, if I'm correct. So the height is less than what's allowed and less than what could be allowed under the current zoning. Do you know whether the Village of Oak Brook has a right-of-way access ordinance in place, or are they just reviewing this?
If I may speak, Oak Brook's property line is at our north end, and that's why Oak Brook is involved. Oak Brook owns that street, and my property line is that street.
I understand you need permission for the curb cut to get onto their property. I was just curious, in granting or denying, that case law kind of states what the standards are. This is the only access from the property.
Correct.
Do they have right-of-way access ordinance defining what criteria they look at when granting or denying curb cuts that you're aware of? I'm just curious.
I'm not aware, because I just received a copy of the same letter that Shannon spoke of this morning. Okay? I received a copy from Shannon last night, but from them this morning.
I just have a question also. If all setbacks were met on this property, front, side yard setbacks, a supplemental setback, rear yard setback, do you know, or maybe you could calculate, maybe for, at least for the village board, what the buildable square footage is of this parcel if all setbacks were met? Because I'm only guessing, but it would seem to be a very tiny parcel or developable area.
Thank you for stating what I've tried to do with too many words in a much shorter statement, sir, because that's the reality. I can provide that information, I'll do it by computer, but that essentially is the issue. What do you really have to develop on this parcel if you don't seek this, what's the word I want, variance, but also relief?
It would seem to indicate that some sort of variances would be necessary. It doesn't show that this is the right project necessarily.
Understood.
Mr. Chairman, one other observation I'd just like to correct for the record. I think several times during the presentation we've heard the term special use. I don't believe that's technically the correct term that we should be looking at here. The petitioner is seeking a request to rezone the property from OR Office Research District to an R6 Special Residence District. So the word special appears, but not paired with the formal special use with a capital S and a capital U.
Okay, very well. Ready, John? We'll start with the commissioners. Commissioner Thomas.
What I find troubling is coming before the commission with what seems to me incomplete plans. Water retention is usually we have that all worked out, and it's all, this is what it's going to be, this is what, and now I'm being told that it'll be worked out before we get to the village board. A preceding item, the previous gas station attendant, they're open for business before we even look at it. Now, I'm not saying that's improper. I'm just saying it's out of whack as far as in my head. You know, I would like this. I see nothing here about water retention and that, and we have people saying that we have water that sits there. Of course, it's going to sit there, and of course, you're going to have a building there, and so there has to be some kind of movement, and it can't be just moved off to the big lake that's on your neighbor's property. I'm not suggesting that you're planning that, but I don't see anything here, you know, and I would prefer to see it if I'm going to vote on it. I agree with your hardship that it's a small lot. And you're going to need variances. Do you need all these variances? You know, this property is historically heavy on variances just because of the shape and that. And I like this project the best of any that I've seen for this property. It seems like we may be trying to move too quickly, or I just like to have the facts there before I vote on it. That's all. That's all I have.
Commissioner Pill.
Thank you. I agree with Commissioner Thomas on this one too, and I'm not sure what the call or what the rush is on this. It's been vacant for so many years at this particular point, and the last time we ran into this, there was a difference of opinion with the Village of Oak Brook, and I would have thought that this would have been tightened up with the Village of Oak Brook before it even came to us again, because that was the problem last time. I could tell from the tone of that letter that it seems like we're heading down the same road. I was here the last time with the 9 versus 7 story building, and so I'm not sure why we don't see that first, and it's very difficult knowing that there could be many different changes based on accommodating them, if an accommodation can even be reached. And now we've got a neighbor here on two sides who you're going to need to get access even to possibly get water or sewer or certainly stormwater. And those are all going to be presenting problems, it sounds like. I'm very much in agreement with the residents who spoke and have identified the flooding that takes place up there, even with the open area now. That road is washed out anytime there's more than an inch or two of rain. Not for long periods, but certainly for hours. And that's a problem. And since we don't have any real good stormwater, again, I'm sort of echoing what Commissioner Thomas has said. I have a problem with that. I had a family member at 6501 South Cass also, one who we visited every single day, 7 days a week. And we had numerous problems with parking at that particular location, numerous problems. And I got to know quite a few of the people in that facility, and there were quite a few people who were on the at least every other day plan, if not every day. So I'm not sure that the majority of people are visited only a week. My experience is certainly not as grand as the doctors. It is limited, but that's what I experienced, and I question whether we have enough parking for that. The problem that you have here is that it's unlikely that the Forest Preserve Quail Ridge is going to sell property for parking. 35th Street presents no options for parking. So there really is nothing to back up, at least at 6501 South Cass. There is residential streets if you care to walk, but here you're going to have to walk pretty far to do that. And secondly, there was residential property next to it that came before this commission some time ago also, that they were able to purchase and expand the parking so that it's more suitable now. That being said, I agree with Commissioner Thomas that this is the best of what we've seen for this use. It's a tough piece of property, but it was a tough piece of property when it was purchased. I'm not sure, but I feel uncomfortable supporting this in its present form with so many open-ended aspects to this. I also personally spent many, many years on the road in previous business, and I had a thing about the size of hotel rooms, and while you may say that 425 feet falls within the parameters of a comfortable space for a one-bedroom, I suppose it's like beauty. It's in the eye of the beholder. I'm not quite sure whose comfort level we're addressing there. It certainly wouldn't be mine. So I definitely have a point of contention with the square footage of the one-bedroom. Would I assume that on the top floor, the one-bedroom den are what's also referred to as a two-bedroom? Because the letter refers to two-bedroom, the drawings refer to one-bedroom DN. I assume that's one-bedroom den, so that would be the two-bedroom one?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Commissioner Anton?
Okay, I'd like to first temper my comment. I have to give some comments here real quick, but my construction company has bid on a former version of this, so I'm not going to vote on this. But I do want to say that out of the other things that have come across this board, this seems to be a thing that fits. I don't know about the veterinary thing and some of the other things, but this seems like a good fit. Yeah, I was a little concerned too. There's no, as my other commissioners have said, stormwater would be nice and some elevations on the building. But other than that, I think it's a good use of this project or this property. There's not a whole lot you're going to be able to build without variances. That we knew this coming in. We've done this how many times? If you can get it off the ground, I think the big thing is going to be Oak Brook, getting your tie-ins. But that's my comments.
Commissioner Van Buren?
I pretty much agree with all that's been said. My concern too is if you do not get access from Oak Brook, everything stops. There's no, you can't build, you can't do a thing. And I don't know about the legal capability of an adjoining neighbor blocking your ability to get your services, water and sewer. Somebody may want to speak to that. But those are issues that all the discussions and all the tweaking we do of your plan are all moot unless you can access the property and you can access your utility, your services. And so I too feel that of the things that we've seen, that this is probably going to be the best use for this property. I have one question to staff. When we say R6, we are already considering, are we considering this as a special zoning that takes into account for the elderly and the requiring lesser space?
I believe so, Commissioner. I think the R6 does allow for elderly housing. The only other area that we have where this is, I think, is for the Cordia facility up.
In B2, but this district was specially created specifically for elderly and senior residences. R6, that is the purpose of that district.
I might also comment on the parking. My mother-in-law lived in a assisted living in Naperville till she was 99, and then she moved over here in Westmont to Burgess Square and lived there through the rest of her life till 105 last year. And so every day my wife visited her. And true, many of the patients there or people living there don't get any visitors, and you really feel sorry for them. But the parking lot there was totally, and still is today, totally inadequate. And these are people that no one has a car. No one. It has to be staff and visitors. So, again, I don't know what their ratio of units to parking space is, but totally inadequate, because cars are parked up and down the street, up all the way to Cass Avenue, daily. So that would be one of the things that would have to be looked at. But I think the first thing we really have to do here is we've got to iron out the ability to get access from the Oak Brook, and secondly, to get sewer and water. That's all I have.
And as far as your question with the sewer and the water, they are entitled to a connection as long as they can get to a line. And the question is, how do they get to, for example, a water line? They do not have the right to cross private property, such as Quail Ridge or Quail Hollow, to get there. They would have to negotiate an easement and likely pay money for that, or they'd have to go across the public easement to extend water, which I didn't study the map carefully enough to know how far and how costly that is, but they should have an option along a public easement along the roadway to get to water. I just don't know where that is.
Unfortunately, I believe that's, 700 and some linear feet to the nearest Westmont water main. And I don't know, John, maybe you can speak to this, I don't know that the village of Oak Brook is legally obligated to provide service to an out-of-city.
They're not. Yeah. And I don't know where the Salt Creek sanitary sewer line is.
If I can address that, only because I've been involved in it 8 years. I had originally talked to Oak Brook about tying into their water, which happens to be right across the street. And they had no problem 4 or 5 years ago giving me water, which was under a different mayor's jurisdiction. The sewer is up 35th Street and down past Glenelg. I think the sewer run is a maximum of about 1,500 feet. Would require a lift station, and we're aware of all of that. Okay, so we're aware that that can be a costly expense. That's why this project, we have no other use to do with this project. I mean, there is a lot of uphill battles, and when I address the concerns of the board of saying, well, why don't you get permission from Oak Brook first? It's like you put the cart in front of the horse, or the horse in front of the cart. And I think that Oak Brook wants to see exactly what we're going to be able to do. And there should be no reason in the world that anybody would prevent us to have access, egress and regress out of our property. And once the board would allow us to be able to say, this is the proposed plan, this is where we propose to put the driveways, I think it makes it easy for Oak Brook to say yes or no. Right now, if I don't have a plan to go to Oak Brook throws me out the door. Oak Brook had been a little, years ago they were very greedy, but they also wanted this parcel in their community. And they made it very clear to me that if I could get this board to take this property and bring it to Oak Brook, they would grant me anything I wanted to do. And I understand the communities that have the little tiffs or whatever the case may be, but this is truly Westmont property. And this is truly a gateway to Westmont going down 35th Street. And this is a total plus and a win for everybody. And I don't see any negatives to it. I really feel that the board should vote for it so that we can go ahead and get these obstacles and come through it. We had a water issue, and the reason Earl probably hasn't addressed that is originally when I was doing 7- and 9-story buildings, we were going to store stormwater underground. We even talked about it, and that was what we were going to do on a 9-story project or 7-story project. We were also doing 5-foot setbacks on a lot of the parcel sides of it. He has found where the village engineer formulated the numbers for runoff water on that particular parcel would be for that lake. Now, I had relatives living in Tartan Lakes, and I'm very familiar, as everyone knows, of this area. I don't have the elevations in front of me, but as you all know, Tartan Lakes is probably 40 feet above this property, if I'm guessing at the right numbers. This property happens to be sitting at the lowest end that I could ever be at, and having to have a lift station, maybe 2 lift stations, to go ahead and run my sewer. We're aware of all that.
If I might ask a question, I understand the height elevation with Tartan Lakes, and I know that Tartan Lakes isn't going to flood. But it could take one of the 2 routes of egress from Tartan Lakes away if this contributes to more flooding in that corner. I think that's the point. I also think that modern stormwater planning will alleviate some of that, either through agreements with neighbors, or you'll have to just engineer it and spend more money to do it, but at some point it will happen. I don't have a problem even with R6, because there's plenty of R6 on 35th Street, and I think that fits in okay with this. I don't see where you can squeeze any more parking out of this, and I think you got a parking problem.
You know, I'm going to leave it to the experts, and the doctor has an engineer or a business consultant that has 3 projects that he's presently managing. And I think that this project, and Earl will probably tell you the numbers. Earl, are we looking at a $6.5 million build project on this?
It's approximately 6.
So you're looking at a $6 million project. I don't think the doctor wants to venture off that's going to be operating this project and take a chance of that being as much of a problem as we think. I'm not in the business, and I'm relying on him, who's going to be putting up his money. I think that they've done the studies in Wisconsin and the other places that they have, and they know the numbers. And I would be more than happy to have him go ahead, because there's enough little loose ends, whether it be Oak Brook or whether it be sewer connections, which originally we were going to tunnel underneath 35th Street and go that way and then go ahead and tie it.
Commissioner Fidesco?
I have a few comments. Let me start out by saying I've lived in the village for over 25 years, and I remember that being a gas station, and when Route 83 was an old 4-lane highway that had access to that. And then once it ceased operation, maybe about 23 years ago, that parcel has been vacant ever since. I was on the village board when you guys brought up the 9- and 7-story buildings, and honestly, this is the best use of this property. It's my opinion. I mean, it's much better than what was proposed before. Yes, it may have some issues, and I do understand, and I feel that there should be the water detention should be taken care of, or at least known prior to, know what you're going to do with it prior to going to the village board. And And as far as the parking goes, I do agree with the rest of the commissioners that there's some possibility of some issues. So a professional study of not only the facilities that the doctor is associated with in Wisconsin, but other facilities in the area. I'm just thinking off the top of my head, Sunrise is a facility that's similar to this, and check with them and see if they have a study and what they have done in the past and what the numbers are. Present those. I mean, you have to have some backup. And as far as the neighbors, I mean, this property has been available or had been available for over 20 years. And I'm sorry, if they object to this project, they had every opportunity to buy that parcel and develop it the way they saw fit, and they didn't choose to do so. They left it up to others, and you know what? You choose your own, you make your own decisions, and if you didn't want to buy the property, that's your tough luck. Let somebody else try to develop it, and this is a property that's been vacant. I feel that something needs to be done, and this is the best project so far. I mean, and if it has, problems with Oak Brook and it doesn't pass, they don't offer the curb cut, well, I hope something else comes in that's similar, but I do wish this one, comes to fruition.
I'll wait for my comments.
Okay, and then that's pretty much my comments.
Commissioner Fleet?
Well, as being the last one around the table, so all my list of things have been you've nailed them all, guys. Good work. And also, I know the staff has been working with you on this, and having, again, lived in Westmont for a long time and saw the gas station fold up and basically blow away. And the previous building that we saw plans for, and then coming here with this this looks like a very good use for that. But the fact that almost the whole parcel is covered, and stormwater detention is a primary obstacle to overcome, but engineering's available to get it done. I know what that area looks like when we have a heavy rain, and considering that we'll have more heavy rains as things go on with the way the weather cycle seems to be working, is that you need to be prepared for that and have the answers for that, and before we get much deeper into this. And also with the utilities, with the sewer and water. I know it seems like a catch-22, but I think with our staff here from Westmont's side, I think you can hopefully get some help to overcome those obstacles.
They're going to be expensive, and that's one of the reasons it drives this project to a 54-unit project, to overcome the expenses of bringing sewer and water. I had originally asked the village to grant me septic at that location and build something smaller and do something small, and that was absolutely tabooed, so we need to bring sewer and water, and at the cost of the expenses of what it takes to do it. I mean, we're back to the chicken and the egg.
May I comment?
Sure. Please.
Thank you. First, if I may, sir, let's talk about Oak Brook, street access, and utilities, okay? We will solve the detention problem. We have to on our own site. UBS has said no. They are not willing to accept that as a private owner of that detention pond, even though engineering in your community included it for the area of this site. The open space on this site is 7,000 square feet of the 20,000 square feet that's being built on, okay? The potential, Mr. Miller, of anything from Quail Ridge coming to us or us going to Quail Ridge is not allowed. That does not occur when a plan is engineered. Staff will back me up on this. It cannot exist that way. We must solve our own problem, and we will with on-site detention, okay? street access from this parcel to 35th Street. It existed at the gas station. I don't believe Oak Brook can deny that access, period. This is in Westmont. You cannot tell somebody they cannot access a street. It's as simple as that. Utilities are the same issue. I have to go a longer distance because Quail Ridge is unwilling to either use their connection of storm, willing to provide them a new lift station to accomplish that, or access to their water or their sewer. Fine. Mr. Thomas, you indicated that here we are making this presentation incomplete. Not so. I went to the village of Oak Brook first week in August, wrote them a letter. I have copies here, so does Shannon. August 8th. Repeatedly asked for a response. I got the response yesterday. Can't be any more prepared than that allows me to be. They chose to comment on everything about this site that relates to your jurisdiction beyond my request simply to tie into their water. No would be a nice, simple answer to work with. I've now got it in a very complex manner, which is also, I'm sure, giving you folks some reason to stutter, step, or hesitate. And I understand that. And that's why in the beginning I said, I'm really pleased that you allowed us to hear us tonight and to proceed to get the dialogue on the table. That was my method and my requirement, as I've done in 30-odd other zoning cases, go to UBS, to go to Oak Brook before I got here. I did so. We now have their response. We'll deal with it. We'll make a longer attachment on the sewer and the water. We'll solve our storm on site. That's it, folks. There's no more to it. We'll provide the engineering documents if you're willing to allow us to get to the board, and we'll have it there prepared for them. I will provide Oak Brook, prior to that meeting, the results of that engineering for their stormwater management question, their traffic study, and the particulars of, quote, dimensions and access points from our site to their 35th Street jurisdiction. I'll deal with it. Okay? I have a couple other comments that I'd like to go around the table with to make sure we're on a level playing field here. Simply, in summary on flooding, it's not allowed. Whatever is occurring now, we did not create it, folks. It's happening because of natural circumstances surrounding us all. Okay? We'll be glad to do our part, sir. We're required to do it before this group or this community's engineers will approve the project, just like Quail Ridge did. Okay? Parking, tough one. I believe the traffic study and analysis, comparative analysis, will give us some answers that we're all seeking here. We're in excess of the, forgive me if I'm mistaken, Shannon, 27 is the required?
You're providing 10 more than the code requirement.
Okay, because we agree we want to have some excess, okay, to an issue that at best is difficult to determine. But we'll have that data for the board if we can proceed. Size of units. I have been directly associated for about 15 or 20 years now with a more urban setting. One of the buildings that Dr. Gandhi's consultant has managed in the Oak Park area. 191 units. these sizes are in excess of those sizes. Yes, they're smaller than some other sizes, but the demographics we have studied through that consultant and the new trend in the marketplace from 200 to 300 unit facilities to 40 to 80 unit facilities is what's really happening, because they want a more personalized, intimate environment. That's what the people are asking for. So I would hope to respond directly to your parking when we've had the analysis done. Our discussions with staff determined, because of the use, we didn't need the analysis at that point in time. We have found, listening to some other folks who are involved with this kind of facility, that it is necessary. We're going ahead and to produce that. While we don't have the full answer for utilities tonight and access, and I'll include parking, we'll put those in process immediately to be prepared for the board hearing if you'll allow us to do so. Thanks very much for your time and your willingness to listen.
You
There's more
haven't
to
heard
it.
me yet.
Oh, boy.
Apologize.
I've usually got a few things to say.
Okay.
If you could please help me.
Sure.
Item H, your zoning code variance request, required rear yard setback, you're proposing 12.7 feet.
Yes.
On the site plan that you gave us, I see a dimension here of 10 foot 3 inches to the edge of the building, and then there is a bow window which will further reduce that 10 foot 3 inches. So I think you're off. Either your drawing is off or your request is off.
Either way, there's a contradiction and an error, sir. And what I'm searching for, if I may borrow, Fred, your site plan for just a moment. Thanks. Yeah, it reads the same. Thank you. That's an error, sir. We'll have to stand by what we submitted to 12.7.
Okay.
There were some alterations made to the adding an elevator, a treatment room, and a public toilet, if you can see just directly to the north of that. And that pushed this dimension outward, uncoordinated, if you will, to the 12.7 feet. We'll make that correction.
Also, you're talking about, from what I can read on the Village of Oak Brook, their letter, you're not going to get their water.
Correct.
That's a given.
Yes.
Your water from Westmont is about 700 foot away.
Correct.
Does the village got to dead end that water main? Usually we loop it. What's going to happen here?
We would defer to the Water Division Superintendent and
That's
the
something
Public
that's
Works
got to be
Director.
looked at. I don't know if
advice
you looked
there.
at that or considered it.
I had preliminary conversations with Mr. Ramsey, and that's what we're reviewing. With the advent of Oak Brook's decision, again, which I received yesterday.
Okay, and parking, I can see there's a problem with parking, but my main problem is what Commissioner Thomas first started out with, that we're being given an incomplete plan. And to be quite frank with you, I have a great problem with that. As far as I'm concerned, you could have anticipated and made provisions for your water and your sewer and your traffic study, of which we have nothing. And I'm being asked to just grant all of these variances, a maybe. And to be quite frank, I don't like being asked to do this. Now, I would pose a question to my fellow board members. would anybody care to perhaps postpone this until we get a site plan with more of our questions answered? Or do you want to go ahead and vote on it? Anybody care to talk along that issue?
I don't have a problem with, although I'm the one that brought it up, that it wasn't here. I do understand your thinking of horse and cart and
Thank you.
get going and as long as it's, but then on the other hand, I see it two different ways. As commissioner, I'm asked to okay this and help out the trustees and give them my opinion. I'm not, in this, I'm being asked to do partial and then just let them do, you know, let it be asked of them. But like I said, I see it two different, I can see it two different ways, and I really don't have a problem voting on it to go ahead and then let it fall where it may, because if, like you said, if you run into the water problem, it's going to die. The project will die of its own weight, you know, and it won't have anything to do with us, and it's either going to go or it's not going to go.
Well, and I think that...
Please, if you would, the home audience cannot hear you.
I'm sorry. And I think that by going to Quail Ridge tomorrow, if we're fortunate enough to get approved, and saying, listen, we're not in the office building business. We're not, obviously, we couldn't build an office building and find 2 tenants at an occupancy, or at a vacancy rate of almost 50% or greater in some of the areas. So maybe Quail Ridge will reconsider, knowing that this isn't going to affect them. I mean, in an office building, people are looking inside. They didn't buy an office building or renting office space to be looking out at trees, and, I mean, they're still going to have the same trees. I mean, I just feel like we can move forward by going ahead and getting the acceptance from the village.
Commissioner Thomas, what you just spoke of, though, and I look at it as the Village Board of Trustees has hired us to eliminate all of these questions, and I feel we are not doing our job if we send them up incomplete proposals without all of these questions being answered. Most of this stuff should be answered, so they've got a complete picture when it hits their desk and they can make their decisions.
One thing that could change is there are 2 curb cut accesses proposed onto 35th Street. Oak Brook could say, reduce that to 1, which could change some of the layout, the traffic flow, the landscaping. Again, you may consider that to be a minor change that would not affect your decision on this, but it's something to consider.
And if I may ask Mr. Kimball, if he would comment on the acceptance of the 7-story building back 4 years ago, that we had the approval of the board back then for 5-foot setbacks and water retention, fire department approval, et cetera, and this project isn't anywhere near as restrictive as that project was.
I believe that project had the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission, but did not receive full village board approval.
Because we didn't continue forward.
Correct.
I also think, though, that we had a more complete set of plans that evening.
You know, I almost think this is more complete. We had a lot of people testifying. We had engineers testifying. We had the fire department here. We had a lot more variances in that project. We had height changes. We had 5-foot setbacks. We had a lot of variances. And we still had a parking issue. And I have to tell you, had I gone forward with that, I probably would have, I don't want to use the term "blown my brains out," but I mean, I think that would have been an eyesore for the community, and I think it would have been sitting vacant today.
No, not that I get to vote, but what's in front of us, I mean, we can surely give an opinion on. That's what they're asking. They're not asking about the water retention. That's by engineering. Some of the other issues here, the parking, of course, is us, but I mean, that's a pretty simple one to get it put together. For what we've got in front of us, I don't think it's I think it's a no-brainer. It's a better building than what we had put before.
Fred, may I ask a question? What level of change, let's just say for sake of argument that we went through these items and they stand on their own merit, A through J, and they pass or fail depending on the roll call. Let's just for argument's sake say that they pass, and prior to going to the village board in negotiations with Quail Ridge, the village of Oak Brook, and additional engineering, there are substantial changes to this. Does it come back here, or does it automatically go to the village board? And what triggers that?
Yeah, we'd have to take a look at any revised site plan and make a determination at the staff level. Does this rise to the level of what we would consider to be a significant site plan change that would materially change the originally approved plan and should therefore come back before the Planning and Zoning Commission? That's merely a judgment call by the staff at that point, but I think we've always erred on the side of conservatism, saying that if there's any question that it materially alters the site plan, we'd like it to go back through and be reviewed by this commission again.
And the village board can send it back also if it comes before them and they say, boy, this looks a little different to what planning and zoning recommended, they on their own initiative can send it back.
Well, with 2 staff members and the village attorney and this being recorded, that's part of the reason I'm bringing it up this way, so that we have a record of that. Because if we go through this to eliminate the chicken, or the cart and horse argument, but if there are changes and we go from 1 entrance to 2, or 2 to 1, that could change the flow of this thing immensely. And I could see them doing that, because I believe that was, I think that was going to be discussed back in the 7-story building.
Correct.
They were willing to allow.
We wanted the 2.
Right, and they were willing to allow the 1, and I have a feeling we're going to hear the same argument again from them.
What did the gas station have?
It had 2, but 1 was on 83, and that's closed.
Oh.
That's why the 1 that's there, I think they have to leave, or they have to allow some kind of ability to get out, in and out, but they don't have to agree to a second one, I think.
I'd like to think that from what has been told to me from some people that know people in Oak Brook, that I think they'll be a little bit more receptive when we present the plan.
This is a copy of the access to and from the gas station that you can pass around. This is 35th. There were 2 on 80.
2 on 83, but just 1 on 35th. Yep. Thank you.
One comment with the either traffic consultant study or their consultant about parking. If you forwarded on any reports that come in, of course, could not be considered by you if you've already made your recommendation. You wouldn't have an individual here testifying under oath. That may have not been the case anyhow. They may have just simply said, here's our report, and you could give it whatever weight you'd want, but just something else to consider if you vote and additional information comes in later.
If I can make one comment, and on the previous plans that I had submitted originally, which would be this corner, which is the northeast corner, my suggestion on the 7-story building was to have egress and regress right at that location. There's a tremendous amount, as you can see, 35th Street is here. So all of this property makes a tremendous amount of sense to even eliminate this drive, to be able to have cars come in and go out. The advantage that I liked that when I originally addressed this board was when you're here, you can see westbound traffic very easily. You can see southbound traffic coming down the frontage road. So all the traffic coming in and going out here has the availability of being to be able to be perfect. The traffic here, obviously, it's one way in. The problem I have with that, and I haven't discussed this with Earl, is because there's no stop sign here, which I would hope that Oak Brook would put here, the cars can go 30 miles an hour here. And on slippery pavement, if a guy decides to make a left turn in here, it's not as safe as if he was making a turn here. So I actually would like the plan, as I originally had said, to have possibly pulling in and pulling out here. So even if Oak Brook says we're only going to give you one way, that's not a problem, and it's almost a plus.
I would submit that that's a topic for our engineers to accomplish, to relate to many, many more comparable situations that they have in their files than I do, or Bob does, and offer a solution that may be better than this, same, or somewhat different.
Just to echo the commissioner's comments, once again, you're asking us to make, it's just one more variable that remains unanswered. And while I certainly can sympathize with your receiving correspondence as late as yesterday, that's certainly not our responsibility, nor was it our hindrance. So, we've got, there's just an awful lot of variables on this thing, everything from each utility, and now some answers sound like they're coming in, although they may be open to renegotiation. We have a no from Quail Ridge. We have a, well, if we have the approval, maybe we can go open that door again. We have a no from Oak Brook on water, but perhaps they'll say yes on curb cuts. So there are a lot of things, and stormwater, while it will be engineered, it still is something that I wish we were seeing right here. I mean, that's what our responsibility is, to look at this stuff.
Not the stormwater.
Maybe to move this along, someone should make a motion to table and see how the vote turns out, unless.
Well, it's also
no.
their responsibility too. If they wanted to go to a vote, then that's their choice also, correct?
Yes. Well, they can ask that, and you can say, you can deny that request and say you want more information. But if they strongly request a vote, if you don't feel like you have enough information, then, well, I don't want to say how you.
Let's poll the commissioners. Who feels like voting on this tonight? Let's start with Commissioner Thomas.
I'd be willing to vote.
I'd be willing to vote.
Commissioner Pill?
I'd be willing to vote, and I would say that so that the applicants have an idea. I would vote. In general, I am all in favor of the R6 conversion and the general project. I am going to vote no on a couple of these items because I don't think we have insufficient data.
Commissioner Anton, you're going to abstain.
Same, but I would vote, yeah.
Commissioner
I
Van
would,
Buren?
I would be willing to vote.
Commissioner Fidesco?
I'd be willing to vote this evening.
Okay, that's a majority right there. So let's try the first one first. A motion to postpone. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
second? Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Pill, seconded by Commissioner Thomas. May we have a roll call on that, please?
Commissioner Fidesco?
And let me get this correct. You're putting up to postpone?
Correct.
No.
Commissioner Thomas?
No.
Commissioner Pill?
No.
Commissioner Anton?
Abstain.
Commissioner Fleet?
No.
Commissioner Van Buren votes no. And Chairman Richard?
Yes. All right. That said, under Planning and Zoning Item 10-026, I would entertain a motion to recommend approval to the Board of Trustees. Item A, map amendment request to rezone from OR, Office Research District, to R6, Special Residence District, for the purpose of constructing an independent and assisted living facility.
So moved.
Second.
That's motion by Commissioner Pill, seconded by Commissioner Fidesco. Question on the motion. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Anton?
Abstain.
Commissioner Pill?
Yes.
Commissioner Fleet?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes. And Commissioner Fidesco?
Yes.
And Chairman Richard?
Yes. Okay, here we come. Under advice of attorney, I am told that we can lump all of the variances. Now, if we're going to lump them all together, or does...
Well, can I clarify?
Please do.
A separate vote's required to recommend or deny each one. The findings of fact, as I was preparing these, were similar for the most part for each. So I've condensed the findings of fact for all of the variances into one findings of fact requiring a single vote. Because I figured this was a project you'd either be for or against. However, if someone is opposed to a particular variance, yet in general agrees with the findings of fact, I think maybe just clarify that fact
In the vote.
in your vote.
So what if we read a findings of fact for, and use it for all 8, variances, but then we will take each variance by itself. Correct. Everybody got that? Okay, if we may have a reading of the findings of fact, please.
For the record, staff would like to thank the village attorney for his merciful decision to consolidate the findings of fact. Criteria number 1, the property in question cannot yield a reasonable return if permitted to be used only under the conditions allowed by the regulations in the district in which it is located. The property has remained vacant for a significant period of time. Development of the property is limited in that there is no direct access to Route 83, and as a result, there is not sufficient visibility and access to potential customers to attract a viable commercial use. Development of the property with a single-family use is not a viable option, as there are no surrounding single-family uses within the village limits, and due to the high expense of bringing public water and sewer to the property. Development of the property with an office research use or an assisted living use makes practical sense given the surrounding zoning and nearby zoning and uses. However, the property's limited size of 27,000 square feet render any such development economically unfeasible without significant variances granted to the property to allow such a development. This property is a subdivided lot of record containing 27,000 feet, therefore a variance for the minimum required lot area is justified. A variance allowing an increase in the number of dwelling units permitted per acre is justified, as any development of the property is economically unfeasible given the high cost of development and constraints on development posed by this particular property. A decrease in the minimum lot area required for a 64-unit building is again, that should say 54-unit building, let's correct that. 54-unit building is again justified due to the fact that this is an existing lot of record which cannot be developed for a reasonable return if the number of dwelling units were reduced as required by code. A variance to allow a reduction in the minimum size of one-bedroom units is justified given the marketing and sales price of these units and given the other amenities proposed for this development. Variances for the front yard setback, interior side yard setback, rear yard setback, and supplemental setback along Route 83 are all justified due to the small size of the property and the inability to economically develop this property if the required setbacks were maintained.
If you agree with this, please raise your hand. In agreement is Commissioner Thomas, Commissioners Fleet, Fidesco, and Van Buren. If you disagree, Commissioner Pill, Commissioner Richard disagree.
Criteria number 2, the plight of the owner is due to unique circumstances. The property has remained vacant and undeveloped for a significant period of time, and any development is likely to be economically unfeasible without these variances. Additionally, these variances are justified due to the high development costs for this parcel, including the extension of water and sewer mains to the property and the installation of underground stormwater detention.
If you agree with this, please raise your hand. Okay, and disagree? Okay, Commissioner Pill is in disagreement. Commissioners Fleet, Fidesco, Van Buren, Richard, and Thomas in agreement.
Criteria number 3, the variation, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the locality. An existing large assisted living facility is located in the immediate area known as Maze Lake Village. Other surrounding uses within the village are office use research uses and single-family uses exist across 35th Street in the village of Oakbrook. In general, the Route 83 corridor in this location is characterized by similar intense development and uses. If rezoned, this use will measure 12 feet less than the maximum height allowed. Accordingly, the development of this property with the variances sought will not alter the essential character of the locality.
If you agree with this, please raise your hand. We are unanimous in agreement. Commissioner Anton abstain. Okay, we'll take these variances one at a time. I would entertain a motion to recommend approval to the Board of Trustees. Item B, zoning code variance request to permit a reduction in the minimum required lot area. Code requires 40,000 square feet. 27,000 square feet is proposed.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Pill, seconded by Commissioner Fidesco. Question on the motion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Pill?
Yes.
Commissioner Fleet?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes. Commissioner Fidesco?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Anton?
Abstain.
And Chairman Richard?
Yes. Item C, I would entertain a motion to recommend approval to the Board of Trustees, zoning code variance request to permit an increase in the number of dwelling units permitted per acre. Code allows 23 units, 54 units are proposed.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Thomas, seconded by Commissioner Fleet. Question on the motion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Fleet?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes. Commissioner Fidesco?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Anton?
Abstain.
Commissioner Pill?
No.
And Chairman Richard?
No. Okay. Item D. I would entertain a motion to recommend approval to the Board of Trustees. Item D, zoning code variance request to permit a decrease in the minimum lot area required for a 54-unit building. Code requires 54,000 square feet, 27,000 square feet is proposed.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Van Buren, seconded by Commissioner Fidesco. Question on the motion? Roll call,
Yes.
please. Oh, I'm sorry.
For the attorney, can you explain the difference between B and D?
B talks about, in this zoning district, the minimum lot that's required, if you were to subdivide and create a new lot or develop an existing lot, is 40,000 square feet.
In the R6?
In the R6, that's the minimum lot size that's allowed. This lot is a lot of record and is only 27,000 square feet. So
Okay.
any development is going to require the variance requested in item B. In item D,
That's tied to the 54 units.
correct.
Got it. Thank you.
Roll call.
Please.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes. Commissioner Fidesco?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Anton?
Abstain.
Commissioner Pill?
No.
Commissioner Fleet?
Yes.
And Chairman Richard?
No. I would entertain a motion to recommend approval to the Board of Trustees. Item E, zoning code variance request to permit a reduction in the minimum size of one-bedroom units. Code requires 550 square feet per unit and 425 square feet per unit is proposed.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Thomas, seconded by Commissioner Pill. Question on the motion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Fidesco?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Anton?
Abstain.
Commissioner Pill?
No.
Commissioner Fleet?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes. And did I call Commissioner Fidesco?
Yes, you did.
Okay. Chairman Richard?
No. I would entertain a motion to recommend approval to the Board of Trustees. Item F, zoning code variance request to permit a reduction in the required front yard setback from 35th Street. Code requires 40 feet and 13.75 feet is proposed.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Van Buren, seconded by Commissioner Thomas. Question on the motion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Anton?
Abstain.
Commissioner Pill?
Yes.
Commissioner Fleet?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes. Commissioner Fidesco?
Yes.
And Chairman Richard?
Yes. I would entertain a motion to recommend approval to the Board of Trustees. Item G, zoning code variance request to permit a reduction in the required interior side yard setback. Code requires 10 foot and 7.8 foot is proposed.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Pill, seconded by Commissioner Van Buren. Question on the motion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Anton?
Abstain.
Commissioner Pill?
Yes.
Commissioner Fleet?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes. Commissioner Fidesco?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
And Chairman Richard?
Yes. I would entertain a motion to recommend approval to the Board of Trustees. Item H, zoning code variance request to permit a reduction in the required rear yard setback. Code requires 20 foot and 12.7 foot is proposed.
So moved.
Second.
Did I hear a second? Okay. Motion by Commissioner Pill, seconded by Commissioner Thomas. Question on the motion? I did have one question. The site plan reflects a different number than what we're voting on.
The petitioner stated that they would revise their site plan to show the published setback.
So that will be part of the record for the trustees to, okay, very good. All right, may we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Pill,
Yes.
Commissioner Fleet,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes, Commissioner Fidesco.
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas.
Yes.
Commissioner Anton,
Abstain.
and Chairman Richard.
Yes. I would entertain a motion to recommend approval to the Board of Trustees, item I, zoning code variance request to permit a reduction in the required supplemental setback along Route 83. Code requires 75 feet and 37.1 foot is proposed.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Van Buren, seconded by Commissioner Fidesco. Question on the motion? Roll call.
Commissioner Fleet,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes, Commissioner Fidesco.
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas.
Yes.
Commissioner Anton,
Abstain.
Commissioner Pill,
Yes.
and Chairman Richard.
Yes. Okay, I would entertain a motion to recommend approval to the Board of Trustees. Item J, site and landscaping plan approval.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Van Buren, seconded by Commissioner Thomas. Question on the motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Van Buren votes yes, Commissioner Fidesco,
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas.
Yes.
Commissioner Anton,
Abstain.
Commissioner Pill,
No.
Commissioner Fleet,
Yes.
and Chairman Richard.
No. All right, sirs, you have our recommendation, and staff can tell you when you will go before the Committee of the Whole on a Thursday evening.
Thank you very much.
Good luck to you. Staff, I believe you have something for us on, the last item has been pulled.
Yes, the petitioners for Midwest Gold Buyers did not have a complete application in, despite a couple of extensions, so they would be continued to the October meeting if they have provided everything by this Friday.
Right? Any commissioners, any business to discuss?
Just a question. We've already published for the text amendment for the Midwest Gold Buyers. Do you want to open the public hearing, see if there's any public comment, and continue it, and having to avoid a republication of that?
So we could postpone that if...
It would save the petitioner some money.
Yes, it would.
And some effort from the village staff.
I don't have a problem with that.
I would so move.
Second.
Well,
If we
before
need to
we
do that.
move anything, let's open up that agenda
Public hearing.
item.
Let me open the agenda item first.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Planning and zoning item 10-027. Jacob Sadoff of Midwest Gold Buyers with Ed Peters and U.S. Trust Bank of America regarding the property located at 220 West Ogden for the following. A, text amendment to permit gold and jewelry buying establishments in the B2 General Business District by special use permit. Staff, anything to say on this of?
No, just, we're hopeful they'll submit
Okay.
their full application and we can proceed unless Fred has further comment.
Well, maybe just to elaborate a little bit on the position staff has taken on this, after consulting with the legal counsel, we did not find a clear-cut classification, if you will, for such a type of an operation. In many ways, they operate like a pawn shop. They don't do a retail business, yet they buy gold that comes in when the general public brings it in, and operate in a little bit different than a normal retail establishment that you might ordinarily allow by permitted use in a B2 district. Currently, I believe pawn shops are allowed as a permitted use in an M industrial district in the village.
I think the code is somewhat silent.
Silent? Okay.
So we've referred them to that district because.
I think, I remember that we did that when we had a petitioner, and at that time, we didn't want it in our B2 district, and so we put it into industrial or manufacturing, one of the two.
Which is where I would think something on this order should go.
Yeah, and then
They're already here.
we also had What's that?
I thought this was the place that's on the...
That is not, that one is where the boundary line puts them in unincorporated. There's just that one block there, which is kind of confusing.
By Blockbuster, where the ex-fitness
Yeah.
place was across the street
That's the
from
new one
Luttree.
that they're proposing.
So then we had some additional discussions with the petitioners at the staff level, and they said, well, how about if we make this into a jewelry store? And so it was going to be a part, retail jewelry store, and we questioned them about, okay, would you be willing to submit to an analysis of your gross receipts on your sales to show that in fact the primary purpose was a jewelry store and not your wholesale gold buying? They weren't wanting to discuss that any further. So we said, well, then the next best thing to do is to take this as a text amendment to see what the village might say about the location of such operations in the B2 General Business District. Thus, we are here with this item before you tonight.
Well, as it stated then, if this wants to put it at the B2, and I don't think that's a very good idea myself.
Well, that's the applicant's request, and they have the right to request the text amendment. This text amendment's not initiated by the village.
Oh, I see, okay. Well, since they are not here, I would entertain a motion to postpone.
Before we that, let's open up the public hearing and see if anyone from the public has comments, just so we're official.
Is there
for the
anybody
record.
from the public who will speak on this issue? Hearing nothing, we'll close the public comment. And I would entertain a motion to postpone this
To October.
until our next regularly scheduled meeting,
And to continue the public hearing until
and to
that.
continue the public hearing at that time.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Thomas, seconded by Commissioner Anton. Question on the motion. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Fidesco?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Anton?
Yes, I can
Commissioner
vote.
Pill?
Yes.
Commissioner Fleet?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes, and Chairman Richard?
Yes. Further business, I entertain a motion to adjourn. Oops.
I'm sorry. Don't delay this. Commissioner Thomas questioned that this auto repair service was actually in business before they had ever received any sort of approvals. And it's partially my fault. They had an attorney. They questioned whether a special use permit was even needed because they had been operating legal non-conforming use, if nothing else. They had not ceased their operations. There was no ownership change. Why did they even have to come before the village? And we explained to them why. They could have contested that. We wanted to get them in front of the village, if nothing else, so, conditions could be imposed on their use, which you did. But as a compromise, it was felt best to allow them to continue to operate, let them know what the concerns were, and, Fred supported that also. But it was because of a bit of a tenuous legal position we had taken. It was sort of a compromise.
And in a brilliantly worded document that the village legal counsel prepared, they agreed that if this should not be approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission and subsequently the village board, that they would immediately cease operations. And they were allowed to reopen their business, shall we say, under those conditions.
Fred, you're happy with what they did, though, right? You're happy with what they did, so you're...
Is that the highest and best use for that property? I
I
don't
agree
think
with
so. This is a very unique circumstance, since they did operate the auto repair business as an ancillary part of their operation of the gas station, and it's the same people, the same corporate. Unusual circumstances.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Motion by Commissioner Van Buren, seconded by Commissioner Vadesco. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.